Everybody, it's Renew the Mind time. We are at a amazing point. If you look at your Hebrew calendar, you'll realize we're about to the new moon. We're almost at the end of the month of Tishri. This is listed as the 29th day of Tishri. We're about to begin all over again. We'll find a new moon, and then the sequence of events will build and build and build, and then we'll start fresh. This is the day of starting over. We have completed the cycle of Torah from last year. We are in a new season. We are beginning at Genesis 1:1, all over again. There's an excitement that builds in my heart. I hope it is in yours every year. As we begin to rediscover what Paul meant when he said that we were to renew our minds. The renewing of the mind is to restart the Torah and relearn it every year. Now, I'm going to take you, with your permission, I'm going to take you to a ledge. And then I'm going to talk you back off of it. And we're going to start with the standpoint of backing off of one. Let's just assume that I were to tell you, all you computer geeks out there, I were to tell you to go to your hard drive, open your computer, turn on all the programs, and go to your hard drive and open the folder that says all previously acquired spiritual knowledge. On your hard drive of your brain, on your hard drive of your mind, there is a folder, let's just assume, that says all previously acquired spiritual knowledge. Are you with me? Now, I want you to hit select all. And before you think about it, hit delete. Some of you are staring like, oh my gosh, what did you just say? And I told you I was going to take you to the ledge, and I'm going to back you off. We don't really hit delete, because if you hit delete, you wouldn't have anything to renew. But what we do is say, okay, no matter what is in my database of acquired spiritual knowledge, as I begin over, as I start the renewing of the mind process, I am willing to let it go as and when he sees fit. Now, whenever I open all my files, and those of you who are familiar with the Rabbi Son studies that I've done for 27 years now, if you know the Biblical Lifestyle Center's website and how you get to them, when you open one of those files, at least on my computer, when I open one of those files to look at it, it has a thing up the top that says read only. In other words, the version that opens is a read-only file. In other words, it is what it is, and you don't change it. If your spiritually acquired spiritual knowledge file is a read-only file, that means no matter what I say today, it doesn't really make any difference. You're just looking for me to confirm what you think you know. You've already got you're a read-only. You're just reading only. You're just comparing versus what you already know. So then I have a next prompt is enable editing. The next thing I do when I open my file is, after it says read only, it says, ask me a question, do I want to enable editing? And so I talked you back off of the ledge of deleting your entire hard drive or everything you have of previously acquired spiritual knowledge, but I will not talk you down from this. Enable editing. Enable God to do something different, to do something deeper, to take you to a different level this year than you have ever been before. This, I believe, is what Yeshua was having a conversation with a guy named Nicodemus about. Nicodemus, you must be born again. You must totally renew. You must go back to start. You must go back to start, Nicodemus. Now, this is don't push delete, but push enable editing. Let me begin over again. And so here we are at the beginning of the year. And if I had my PowerPoint here that you could see, you would see a picture of a baby in a crib. And that's who we are. That's who we want to be. You know, Yeshua said, unless you become as a little child. Unless you become as a little child. Unless you enable editing. Unless you become as a fresh slate, an open book. Unless you're willing to become that little child that's willing to be awestruck, then you really aren't going to get much. You're not going to be able to fathom much. You're going to be a terrorist. of some variety. You're going to be a very dangerous, angry, pseudo-intellectual person. Your spiritual knowledge base will become a weapon that you wield against other people and even against yourself. He says, no, I want you to start all over again. I want you to be born again, born afresh, born anew, begotten anew like you were new, a newborn baby. And there's a picture underneath it, or a set of words underneath the picture that says, starting over at wide-eyed innocence. Huh. Don't we all wish we could go back to innocence? Some of you say, no, I've seen too many things. I've had too many pain. But starting over at wide-eyed innocence, at least in regard to the creator of the universe, at least in regard to who our creator is, starting over with wide-eyed innocence and with an open, inquisitive mind, an open and inquisitive mind, and with childlike faith and with trust, and, of course, the Hebrew phrase, emunah, which means the worldview that understands this. Look, whatever's happening, God is good, and he intends only good, and he will bring about good in whatever situation it is. That's emunah. Well, we have come full circle, and we have completed the last lap, and now we are at the place of starting afresh, maybe we wiser this time. But here's some questions as we begin to start life over, as we try this wide-eyed innocence approach, as we begin to consider the possibility that maybe we don't know it all. Maybe we become toxic with the things that we do know or that we think we know. So here's some questions that I just like to throw out this first day, this first Shabbat, this first Sabbath of the new Torah cycle, the new seasons. Where did we come from? Why are we here on earth at such a time as this? If creation is saying something, and part of that database that we didn't hit delete on, but we put enable editing on, part of that database says that the heavens declare the glory of the Creator, and the earth also, and then he goes through in Psalm 19, 1 and following verses is the verse I'm talking about here. And if creation is saying something, if the heavens are saying something to us, if the earth is saying something to us, then what is it saying? What is the message? What are we supposed to be taking from the creation and what's happening in the creation? What are we supposed to be taking from the earth and what's happening in the earth? What are we supposed to be taking by the ecosystem that we are a part of and how we fit into that ecosystem? What are we supposed to be taking from it? If creation is saying something, what exactly is it saying? Next question. Did all the beauty and each of the unique species we see really just evolve haphazardly out of primordial goo over the course of millennia, as atheistic educators propagandize? Or is there someone out there? If there was a Big Bang, is there a Big Banger? And if there's not a Big Banger and it was just primordial goo, where did that primordial goo come from? And if there is a Big Banger, if there was something else, then when and where and from whom and for what purpose have we come into this world? Questions that will be addressed in the Renewing the Mind program. Another question. If there is a creator, if we're willing to go that far, if you who are watching and you who are in this room, I think you are, but those who are watching, if you are willing to go this far, that there could maybe be a creator, maybe this primordial goo that everybody talks about came from somewhere and someone. If there is a creator, how do we connect with him? How do we establish and maintain communication with him? How do we access his database? How do we access his personality? How do we access his energy? And is that even a good idea? Is that even a good idea? What would be the cost? What would it mean to our lifestyle? What would it mean to our mindsets and our worldview if we connected to his database, his personality, and got on his wavelength? What would it do to the way we approach life and the way we approach ourselves and the way we approach the world? Is it even a good idea to make this connection? Or would we be better off just pretending there is just primordial goo and it didn't have to come from anywhere? Well, and if we do decide, no, nevertheless, to try to connect with the Creator that may exist, what's in it for us? What will be the result? What can we hope to gain? Well, and even if we do choose to connect with him, to try this year, to renew our minds, to renew our hearts, to refresh our souls in such a way that we connect with the Creator and his will and his mindset and his database and his wisdom, if we would do that, is there an app? Is there an app for that? There's an app for everything, right? Well, there is an app for reconnecting with the Creator, and that app is called Torah. Are there protocols that we need to know if we're going to be dealing with the supernatural, spiritual realm, if we're going to be dealing with something besides face-to-face communication down here in the dog-eat-dog world? Are there some different protocols we need to address and to adopt and to learn in order to have a meaningful conversation, communication, and download protocol with this great Creator that we're accessing? Or can we just talk to him like we talk to human beings? Can we expect him to talk to us like other human beings talk? Can we expect for data to come and information and wisdom and revelation to come to him by reading books and studying courses and going online and doing Google searches? How are we going to access? How are we going to connect in a way that actually changes the way we approach life? How is there an app, and what are the protocols? Well, after all this time, after all the time we've spent doing it the other ways, how are we supposed to even recognize him if we see him? How are we supposed to be able to distinguish his voice from the thousands, myriads, millions of other voices that are pounding their way into our ears? How will we know his footprint when we see it? How will we know the brush strokes of the master's hand? Or the frequency of the song that's playing that is his song? How will we be able to recognize these voices? How will we recognize his footprint? How will we be able to recognize his frequency, his sound? And what do we need to know about ourselves? And the obstacles and the challenges and the distractions and the detours that we face and our limitations before we even start. And then some of us say, well, why doesn't he just short-circuit all this and just tell us what he wants? Tell us what he wants us to do. Give us a to-do list. I mean, why didn't he just make us like robots or androids or stormtroopers from Star Wars? Why didn't he just make us where we just do his will automatically because we don't have any choice? Why did he give us this sense of awareness and free choice that we've got? Why didn't he just make us stormtroopers? Where's the roadmap, as my friend Michael would say? Where's the roadmap? Why didn't he just make us without wills? Without our own self-will? Why did he make us without our own passions? Why did he make us without our own priorities? Why did he make us with our own worldview and viewpoint and perspective and self-interest? And then, why did he make us all so different? We look different. We talk different. Our fingerprints are different. Our voice patterns are different. Why did he make us so different? Why our skin colors are different? I mean, our language may be different. Our past, our history is different. Our brokenness is different. But we all have. He made us. Why did he make us so different? Why didn't he just make us look like stormtroopers? They all look alike. Why does he let bad things happen in the world? Why does he let pain come into our lives? Why does he let suffering occur? Why does sickness fall upon us from time to time? Why do we see evil in other people or in situations? Why do we see all this negativity? He wants to renew our minds. He wants to give us a whole new way of looking at everything in life. Why does he allow bad things to happen in the world and to the people he created? And then the last question is, how is all this going to end? How is he going to wrap it all up? What's the end game of the whole process? Well, this is where we are. We are at a stage of starting over, of renewing our minds. I told you I'd take you to the ledge, and I'd talk you back. Hopefully we're back. We're in our right mind. We're clothed and in our right minds. And now we're ready to go off on the greatest apprenticeship program with the greatest apprentice teacher, the master teacher that ever existed. Perhaps we're ready to go and let the Creator be our rabbi and the Creator be our mentor. And let the Creator of the universe, as opposed to some religion or some form of religion or some database of knowledge, actually let the Creator of the universe be our rabbi and be our rabbinical trainer to take us through his apprenticeship program. What if this is the time? Well, this is that day if we're willing. You know, Psalm 19, as I referenced a little bit earlier, it says some very fascinating things. I love it. It says, the heavens declare the glory of God. The heavens are talking. If you walked outside this morning here in Texas, I hope you did. The coolness of the air, the briskness of the temperature, the clarity of the sky. Oh, wow, I hope you saw some of that. The birds were singing to me this morning as I took my walk again. The heavens declare the glory of God, and the firmament shows his handiwork. Day after day utters speech. Day after day utters speech, and night unto night reveals knowledge. Night after night reveals knowledge. There is no speech nor language where their voice is not heard. Their measuring line has gone out through all the earth, and their words to the end of the world. It goes on to say, and the Torah of the Holy One. The next introduction, when it begins to talk to you about the heavens declare this, and the firmament says this, and all the lines, and then it says the Torah of the Holy One is perfect, converting the soul, restoring, refreshing, renewing the soul. The testimony of the Holy One is sure, making wise the simple. The statutes of the Holy One are right, causing the heart to rejoice. The commandment of the Holy One is pure, enlightening the eyes, letting you see, establishing a place, a point of vision through which you can intersect with the world. Psalm 19, 1 through 8. Well, here we are. This week, the creation calls and the Torah calls, and both are drawing us into this renewing of the mind process. Now, we didn't delete, so I'm going to go back to where we left off at the end of Deuteronomy, and we'll start with Genesis 1:1. At the end of Deuteronomy, the last three verses we read. Deuteronomy 34, 10 through 12. As we said goodbye to the one who wrote this book, the one who got this revelation, even the revelation of Genesis 1:1. The one who got this revelation, as we say goodbye to him, here's what it says. There has not arisen in Israel a prophet like Moshe, whom the Holy One knew face to face. In all the signs and wonders that the Holy One sent him to do in the land of Egypt, before Pharaoh, before all of his servants, and in all of his land, and by all the mighty power and all the great awesomeness in which Moshe operated in the sight of all Israel. In the sight of all Israel. Well, in that last set of phrases, we got a download of Devarim, of power-packed bombshell words that I just read through as if they were just words. So let's go back. There has not arisen in Israel. Wait a minute. What's Israel? What's Israel? That was a bombshell. That was a rock thrown in. That we were supposed to catch that. There has not arisen in Israel. Now, in Deuteronomy 34, we know what Israel is. But on Genesis 1 day, we haven't even been introduced to Israel yet. Edit. Enable editing. We're going to relearn what Israel is, okay? So there has not arisen in Israel a prophet like Moshe. Wait a minute, we haven't met Moshe yet. It's Genesis 1:1. We haven't met yet. Who's Moshe? Who's Moses, as the Western world likes to call him? Who is this guy? And this is a bombshell word. We're supposed to understand that there's something that's drawing us deeper to knowledge of Moshe, whom the Holy One knew face to face. Is that possible? Is that normal? Is that safe? Is it beneficial? Is it, he knew? That's supposed to, those words, face to face, paneh al paneh. Those words are supposed to be activating something in your heart. Wait a minute, do I know the creator of the universe like that? Do I know, I know him up here with some intellect. I know him with some, I know how to pronounce a name perhaps. But do I know him face to face? Do we have that level of intimate relationship? This is a bombshell. This was a bombshell we were supposed to catch. Before we start again, do we want to know him face to face this year? This year, at this series of studies, this apprenticeship program, this time, do we want to know him more than just as an idea or an abstract concept or as some external source? Do we want to know him face to face? Well, I'm looking at your faces, and I think there's a hunger, and I hope there is. I'm hoping there's building it across the internet right now, a building that's hunger to know him this year face to face, as close as we can get to it, as much as we can have of it. And all the signs and wonders was the next phrase. That's supposed to be a bombshell too. Signs and wonders? Signs and wonders? Signs and wonders? Real? Really? Signs and wonders? Heaven touches earth, something happens? Communication between man and God makes something happen, makes the world that we know not be under the same limitations and restrictions that it was before. It's right there in the Torah. It's right there, the last phrase. Before we get started this year, there is a possibility. There is a call to signs and wonders. Now, a lot of us have ideas what that means. How about we just let him tell us what that means and what it looks like, and not try to push him into a box of what we think signs and wonders looks like. That the Holy One sent him to, what? Sent him. That's another one of those bombshell words, those devarim. Those rocks thrown. The Holy One sends people? He sends human beings? He calls, he empowers, he commissions, he sends, he has jobs for us to do, he has tasks for us to perform. He does that with real human. What? How about me? Is he sending me somewhere? Am I called? Am I sent? This should be sending these shockwaves through your soul at this particular moment. In the land of Egypt. What is Egypt? Oh, wait a minute. Where's Egypt? What is this Egypt thing? Mitzrayim in Hebrew. What is that? Do I have an Egypt? Yeah. Do I understand my Egypt? Do I understand the who's in charge? Who's ruling my Egypt? Do I understand what level of oppression is all around me at all times? Do I get what this Egypt thing is? It's a bombshell. We've all got an Egypt. It's not a historical event. It's a realistic event. We are all in some level of Mitzrayim, of tight spaces, of oppression, under some level of blockage and bondage. So what is our level of Egypt? Do I want to be free of that Egypt this year? Do I want to break loose of the chains? Do I want to break loose of the bonds? Some of those bonds are up in my head. I just got trained to think like that. I heard it so much. I heard so much of the nonsense. I heard so much of the lies. I heard so much of the accusations. And I began to believe it. And it became part of my frame of reference. Do I want to be free? Do I want to be free of the emotions of negativity and depression and sadness and feeling of overwhelm? And there's nothing I can do about it, in the sense of resignation. It's just a horrible place. It's a horrible world. It's a horrible life. Do I want to be free of that this year? I can be free. I can be free this year? Well, yes. Before Pharaoh, the next phrase in this text, and as the last phrases of Deuteronomy, as it faded out, in Egypt, in the land of Egypt, before Pharaoh. Do I have a Pharaoh? Is that Pharaoh looking at me in my mirror every morning? Is it, who is my Pharaoh? Who is making the decrees that impact my life? Who is the one who I am allowing to do that? Who is the one that I am unwillingly or willingly serving? Is it an ideology? Is it a political party or a political position? Is it a material goal or dream or vision? Is it a nationality? Is it an ethnicity? Is it a gender? What? Who is my Pharaoh? Well, and before all of his servants. Oh, does my Pharaoh have servants? Does my Pharaoh have minions? Is it not just the Pharaoh I have to deal with? Is it a bunch of people that have aligned with him? Are they my enemy, or is the Pharaoh controlling them too? Are they victims, or are they perpetrators? Are they vicks, or are they perps? Who are the minions? How will I look at the minions? What will be my attitude toward the minions? What do I want to see happen to those minions? Oh boy, bombshells. By all the mighty power and the great awesomeness. Do you still have a vision of the power of God? Is the power of God real to you? I mean, not ideologically, idealistically, intellectually. Is it something you tremble at? Or do you have a reverence and an awe of his mighty power? Not what he can do, what he does just by being who he is. Are we connected to the power? This is Torah. Torah is trying to awaken these things, as he said the last words of Torah last year. As we got this message from Moshe last year, he's dropping these bombs to let us start again. Can we get a whole new idea of his power? A whole new vision and a perspective and a sense of his power and what his power is all about and what it's for? And can we quit relating to it as something we can use? As a tool in our toolkit that we can apply as we see fit? And instead, let us serve him and stand in awe and stand in wonder and stand in joy and delight and shalom, and saying, you are worthy of all. You are the only one worthy. And his awesomeness, in which Moshe operated, in which Moshe operated, the great power and great awesomeness in which Moshe operated, can human beings operate in the great power and great awesomeness of God? What would that look like? Our mind should be sort of quivering, shaking at this particular stage. Our heart should be pounding. Our spirit should be soaring. We were created, we were designed, we are capable of actually operating in the mighty power and the great awesomeness of the Creator. Well, this is welcome to renewing of the mind. Welcome to what's near. So now, take your seats. Everybody quiet. The curtain is opening. It is time for the great drama to begin. Breshit. Breshit. In the English Bibles it says, in the beginning. We've learned it so well, we believe that's what it says. We believe that's what it means. We have heard it so many times in so many contexts. Our database is full of the information that tells us that the first words of Torah are in the beginning. and then we read it in the Hebrew. Then we go to the blueletterbible.org, or then we go to some of the other websites that actually allow you in our day to actually let you look at what the Hebrew says. And it doesn't say in the beginning. It says Breshit. Now, the word ba, or the letter ba, the bait in Hebrew, it is usually a preposition, and it does mean in. So we got one word right. We got one word right. Ba, in, or of. But in or of, prepositions in Hebrew are very loose. But in or of, in something. In what? And then the next word is Reshit. And this is what the English doesn't really know how to calculate, doesn't know how to figure. Because it appears to come from a verb. Hebrew all is about verbs, and nouns are derived from verbs. And so the noun is not about the noun, it's about the verb that makes the noun happen and that causes the noun's direction. And so what is Reshit? Well, the largest contingent believes that it comes from the verb ra'ash, a verb ra'ash, which means to shake, to send out vibrations. Shaking creates movements per second, which is frequency, which is vibration. And so there's not the, it's in a shaking. There's no ha. The Hebrew, the definite article is ha. And so if it was in the beginning, it would be baha something, but it's not baha anything. It's just Breshit. So in the ultimate shaking, I asked you earlier, if there was a big bang, was there a big bang? If there was a big shake, was there a big shaker? Well, yes, that's the whole idea. In the great shaking, the great sending forth of waves, pulses of energy and vibration, in this great movement, in this pulsing, that is what we are discussing. So what we're going to be reading is energy. It is empowerment. It is not just words. It's not just information. We are receiving, like a radio receiver receives a pulse of energy and a pulse of sound waves. So it is with us as we enter into the study of Torah. What the Hebrew is trying to tell you is you are about to receive a broadcast from on high. You are about to receive wisdom. You're about to receive empowerment. You are about to receive energy. He is shaking. Now, in the book of Hebrews, in the latter part of the book of Hebrews, the writer there quotes the Old Testament, as most people call it. It says that it is written that once more, at the end of days, in the latter days, once more, what will he do? Once more I will shake. Once more I will shake the earth and the heavens and the earth. Once more I will do these things. Because there has to be a previous one, right? There had to be, if you're going to do it once more, you had to do it once. And so what we're getting with regard to this whole download from Genesis 1:1 and this first series of parshas here, the sections of this Torah, is we're getting the waves, the shock waves, the energy, the pulses of that first shaking. And so in the shaking, Breshit, what happened? Breshit, bara. Bara is a verb, a Hebrew verb. Bara. And it's a very fascinating word. It's usually translated in English as created. Bara Elohim. The verb comes before the noun in Hebrew, as opposed to English, which the verb comes after the noun. So instead of saying God created, it was said bara Elohim. So bara, what does bara mean? We're going to talk about bara and what the strategies, what the protocols, what the elements of bara'ing look like. Because if you don't know, this is the Elohim signature. I ask you, how will we recognize his footprint? How will we recognize if we try to get to know him again, how will we recognize his voice and the patterns of his voice and the frequency of his voice? How will we recognize the brushstrokes of the master? We have to know the Elohim signature, and the Elohim signature is all wrapped up in the verb bara. Elohim bara Elohim. So if you don't know what it looks like to bara, if you don't know what that consists of and what its elements are, then you don't really know how he does what he does. And therefore, all this stuff about his awesome power or his great awesomeness, it doesn't really make much sense to you other than just sound really cool because you don't know what it looks like. It looks like bara'ing, if I can mix Texan and Hebrew a little bit. Bara'ing, if I can get you in that idea to understand that we're going to get to know the creator of the universe. And we're going to get to know it by virtue of knowing how he does things. The protocols, the processes he follows, the methodology he uses, this, and we're supposed to adopt his ways and emulate his ways. Boy, this is going to be good. This is going to change everything. This is renewing of the mind times 100,000. This is getting engaged with operating in the great power and awesomeness of our Creator. Are we interested in that? Well, I think we are. So as we start, what if we don't know the story or its writer nearly as well as we think we do? What if there's more in the ancient text than we have ever even imagined? What if the Holy One has far more up his sleeve than we have ever dreamed? And what if this is our appointed time to awaken and to embrace that treasure chest of more? Okay, so it says, Breshit bara Elohim, and we're going to talk about the baraing a minute. But let's say, what did he bara? What did he, if we're going to use the word create to sort of substitute for that in his particular methodology of creating. But what did the heaven, Hashemayim, the heavens, the haaretz, and the earth, and the dirt, and the terra firma, and the planet that we know. He made the heavens, and he made the earth. It's an ecosystem, a great ecosystem that involves all the heavens and all the earth. He created an ecosystem for what? For who? For what goal? For what end? Why did he do this? He's telling us that energy came forth. He shook. He sent forth waves and pulses of energy, and he began to create out of nothingness, because it says, and the earth was without form and void, tohu vavohu, and darkness covered the face of the deep. So initially what we see is, we would have seen, if we were there, we would have looked and we would have seen disorder, chaos, meaninglessness, and covered in thick darkness. We would have seen nothing, basically. And we've had nothing but confusion, but he saw something else. He always does. That's one of the things I love about him. No matter what chaos we throw at him, no matter what meaninglessness, vanity we get engaged in or see going on around us, no matter what level of darkness we have allowed to impinge or encroach upon us, like our Egypt and like our Pharaoh and like those minions, no matter what darkness level we have allowed ourselves to be in, he always sees something else. He always sees something more. And he calls that more forth. He calls that more forth. In your life, in our world, in our day, he is always calling forth that more than we can possibly see. We look at the world and say there's no hope. The trends are all bad. I mean, it's all horrible. People are all mean and bad. And we look at people and we look at movements and we say it's just a joke. It's just a mess. He says, oh, look again. Look through my eyes. Look through my eyes. It's not something that you need to worry about where it is right now. You need to get involved with these pulses of energy and start operating in my knowledge and my wisdom and begin to look at things as not what they are now, but what they can be. I mean, John F. Kennedy and his, do not, look at things and say, how they are. Look at them as they could be. I'm paraphrasing him badly in that process, but that was part of his inaugural speech. And the next thing he said, or the other thing he said in that speech that everybody remembers, was, do not ask what your country can do for you. Ask what you can do for your country. I would just change that to the kingdom. Do not ask what the kingdom can do for you. Do not ask what the King of Heaven can do for you. Do not ask what his whole realm of creation can do for you. Ask what you can do for it. That's why you're here. That's what your purpose is to serve creation, to be his servant, not to be his prima donna. Well, this is part of the process. So let's go through the words again. We've talked about Breshit. And what I would hope to energize and call forth and awaken in each of you is a sense of I want to be a receiver that is tuned to that frequency. And I want to start receiving those impulses. I want to start receiving that energy in me in ways I have never received it before. I want to tune in to his broadcast. And I want to get the power of his words. Now, so let's get that. First thing is, am I going to reorient myself in my way of thinking this year away from the stuff I think he should do for me, to the extent of I am going to receive whatever he tells me he wants to send. He wants me to do. He wants our world to look like. I'm going to start receiving his impulses and his knowledge and his ideas and his perspectives. Do you want to do that? Let's start from that process, because if you don't, the rest of the stuff is just going to be, you can find plenty of people to teach you what Breshit, what Genesis means. You can find outlines online. You can find theologians who've come up with all sorts of different perspectives and possibilities. You can go line upon line, precept upon precept through it, or you can let it change your life. And this session, these sessions that we're going to be doing, Holy One willing and technology cooperating, Facebook allowing. We're going to be exploring the sound waves, the power, the energy that comes forth from his word. We're not going to be going line upon line. You've got plenty of people who can teach you that. So now here, so he says, Breshit bara. We're going to talk about what it means. What does it look like? What does the Elohim signature look like? What are the brushstrokes of the master look like? How do we recognize it's him doing something as opposed to men doing something, religion doing something, organizations, movements doing something, ideas, ideologies doing? How do we recognize the unique, unmistakable brushstrokes of the creator of the universe? Well, he baras. Now, the first thing about baraing is that he sees something that wasn't there. We've already talked a little bit about that. He looked into the darkness and the chaos and the meaninglessness that we would have seen if we had looked, and he saw something else. And he began to, then he not only did he see the potential and the possibilities that were in it, he began to speak it forth. He called it forth. So he said, Yehi or. We read that as let there be light, as if he was asking permission. He wasn't asking permission. He was speaking something. He was declaring something to be that no one could imagine was there. Now, whatever situation you're facing right now, whatever your situation with your children, whatever situation with your spouse, whatever situation you're dealing with an elderly parent, whatever situation you're dealing with financially, whatever situation you're dealing with in any form, socially, relationally, in your country, in your nation, with the government, whatever situation you are facing, what you really need is to get the pulses and the energy of the Holy One and his perspective that sees something there in potential form that can be called forth and spoken out and brought into the picture that will change the entire environment. You need to learn how to bara. Like our master. We're supposed to emulate. We're supposed to be children of God who emulate God. So we learn what do? We don't complain. Why do we not complain? Because complaining is saying, I don't want to be like you. I don't want to acknowledge that there is hope here, that there is great potential here. Why do we not accuse? Why do we not blame? Why do we not judge people? Or judge situations? Or judge governments? Or judge nationalities? Or judge ethnicities? Why do we not do this? Because to do so is to deny the baraing protocols of our God. Because he doesn't look at things and say, well, that's just the way it is. It's terrible. It's fixed. It's done. That's the way it needs to be judged. He looks at it and says, okay, what can we do? How can we speak something in there that's not being manifested yet? How can I speak forth? What do I need to speak forth that sends these energy shock waves that will begin to change things? So baraing involves seeing, and it involves calling forth, choosing what you will call forth. This is a very difficult process for most Americans. And I know that I'm talking to people through the lens of the camera here that are in many different nations. Some nations have this tendency more than others, some ethnicities more than others. But a lot of the world today is trained from youth to be very critical and judgmental, to be very analytical, to be very critical, and to be very judgmental. In other words, whenever we look at something, the first thing we do is say, that's wrong. That ain't right. That's evil. That's terrible. That's destructive. That's sinful. That we look at things and we immediately label it, categorize it, value it or devalue it, as the case may be, assign that label to it, and walk away from it. Praise the Holy One. That's not how he looks at life. That's not how he looks at you. That's not how he looks at me. It's not how he looks at the worst sinner in the world. And he's going to, remember Moses? How did we get to know Moses? Well, there was that baby thing. And then there was that murder thing. Well, we would have, most of us in our analytical minds and our judgmental attitudes and our only vision only to see what we see in front of our eyes would have written Moses off at that particular stage. Or David. Peter. We would have written them off. But the Holy One doesn't see things. Bara'ing, to learn to bara, means to say, I will not write you off based upon what I see. Now, this is a total cultural revolution, particularly in American and Western cultures. To say, I will not do what my culture tells me to do, which is to immediately rush to a conclusion, to a judgment, to declare something to be permanently as it is, because I feel like I am better than that, or I want to separate myself from it. To instead say, no, I want to engage with it in such a way that I can bring forth, or at least call forth, that which is good from it. This is revolutionary. So, renewing the mind, enable editing. Enable editing. Let your mind be renewed, because if we're not renewed, we will not provide to the earth the testimony of Elohim, the bara protocols, the bara methodology of our King, and we will misrepresent him. And we will misrepresent his opinion and his heart toward people. And as we do so, we will begin to break what he put us here to fix. Well, what else does bara include? The process of bara'ing, the Elohim signature, the brushstroke of the master. After he sees that which is unseen, and remember what faith is. Remember what emunah, what is described as in Hebrews, is the substance of things hoped for, the evidence of things not seen. Paul had a lot to say about that. The things that are unseen are what's real. It's the things that are seen that are the image. That's the mirage. What you think you see with your eyes is the mirage. What's unseen, behind the scenes, forward, backward, all the context, that's the unseen, but that's what's real. And you need to reconnect with what's real. Well, this is this process of seeing what's there and seeing what can come forth, seeing the bigger picture of all things, then speaking into it with the energy of the Holy One to bring forth the plan of God for that situation. Do you have a vision? Do you have a vision for the plan of God for, I'm in a city called Texarkana, or a village called Texarkana, USA. Do you have a vision? I mean, I hear a lot of people talk about how bad it is. And I can agree on the surface. There's a lot of things wrong with our city, our town, our village. But the question is not that. The question is, can we bara? Can we follow the signature and can we follow the brushstrokes of the master and let his vision begin to be our vision and let him direct us into what we can speak what does he have in mind for Texarkana, USA? Well, I've my story on that. Most of you know that. I mean, I see this city as being called to be a city of refuge, a place of respite, a place of healing, a place of restoration. But it's going to require a lot of shifting, a lot of changing, a lot of calling forth for that to take place. I'll move on, because most of your cities have some level of that, some level of a beacon, a light, a city set on a hill, a light, and they may not be operating like that right now. There may be governmental factors. There may be political movements. There may be jealousies. There may be perversions that are going on right in your city. But that's not what it is. Your city is merely what God says it is, and you begin to call it forth and begin to work into it and work with it. All right. So we see the vision, we hear the words, we see the move, begin to move, and then we begin to separate out. What he did next, he said, let there be light, or yehi or, be, light, be. And light was. And light was. And then he began to separate the light from the darkness. This is how every day of creation week he did the same thing, just to different things. He looked at something different every week, every day of the week. And he followed the bara process every week, with every day of the week. He always follows, this is his signature move. This is what he does. This is the way he does it. He sees, he speaks, he divides, he separates. And he puts a boundary of separation, a border, a bit of a buffer zone between that which is he's called forth and that which presently exists. And he counterbalances that which he has called forth against what presently exists. And the goal then is to have the expansion of the side of what he sees and the diminishment of the side of what was there that is dark or is meaningless or is vanity or is depressing or frustrating. Now, this is his bara process. We could go through some more, but do you know the Elohim signature? Do you understand how we're going to work and why this is a process? It's not just we just demand it. We just decree it. No, this is a engagement. As the Creator engaged with the creation that he designed, so we are to engage with every facet of our family life, our children. You know, can you imagine a father of a child who is asked later in his life as the child goes to prison, were you a father to this child? Were you a father to this child? Well, yeah, I changed his diaper once when he was a baby. Yeah, I put food on the table for the first 4 years. No, I'm not asking you if you did a few father things. I'm asking you if you engaged with this child, all this child's life up to this point, injecting the vision of God for that child's life, and then speaking it forth, and then interacting with that child on a day-to-day basis to keep this separation and to begin to increase the level of what God was saying and decrease the level of what the world was saying about that child or that child was saying about itself. I want to know, have you been a father? Well, this is what we call him, the Heavenly Father, right? Well, this is what he does. He engages with his creation. So this process of baraing, are we getting up to date with the Elohim signature? As we go through the Torah this year, as he leads us through the shepherd's trail, we talked about it some last week. Last time we talked about the shepherd's trail, the whole idea of Torah, the cycle of the Torah, the whole idea of the cycle of the festivals that he puts forth in Leviticus 23, the whole idea of the cycle of the times and the seasons, or as in Genesis 9 he talks about the seed time and the harvest protocols. The whole idea of these cycles is to train us bit by bit, take us down this road, like a shepherd trains his sheep and takes his sheep daily on a series of passages. He goes through certain obstacles, goes through certain landmarks, takes them and trains them in certain ways. So this is what he's doing with us in the protocols. But let's go back. We've kind of skipped something, haven't we? We've talked about his signature. We've talked about his brushstrokes, his methodology, and what he's calling us to do in this methodology. But have we really talked about who he is? Have we reconsidered what we know about who he is? I'm not going to make you press delete. I am going to ask you to enable editing. To reconsider, perhaps we don't know him as well as you think you do. Perhaps we need to rethink, re-engage. Perhaps we need to reconnect with him at levels that will get us more engaged with who he is. Now, in this parsha, he is introduced to us. And in English Bibles, again, you're going to see in the beginning, God. And he's going to be introduced to us in English Bibles, translations of a Hebrew text, as God. I'm not here to condemn that. I'm not here to say anything about it. I'm just telling you that's not what the text says. Y'all can work out. There's a lot of people out there condemning it. I'm not a condemner. I don't see things through those eyes. I've tried to learn to bara. I've tried to believe there's hope and there's wisdom that can be called forth. I'm going to leave that alone. He's called Elohim. Aleph, Lamed, He, Yod, Mem, Sofit. Aleph, Lamed, He, Yod, Mem, Sofit. Aleph, Lamed, He, Yod, Mem, Sofit. Now, some of you are looking at me like I'm crazy. Why am I repeating these Hebrew phrases, these letters? Why do I keep repeating these Hebrew letters? Because each one of those letters has a frequency, and each one of those letters has an energy, and when you put them together and you say Elohim, you are not just using a name, finding a label to call him. You are appropriating his energy. Like you would listen to a chord that has multiple sounds. I mean, I love it whenever I hear a good chord that has resonance, that has sounds that go together again. I mean, I love the minor chords and the major chords. When you hear this process, and it all comes together, and it has a beauty to it and an artistry to it. And then the individual notes are all beautiful as well. But when you put them together, there's something miraculous and wonderful happens. Well, that's what it is with Elohim. I know this frustrates people because there's all these teachings out there about people who have a database that know he is, choose your name. Choose your favorite name. And I'm telling you, that's not how he introduced himself to us. That is not how he introduced himself to us. And if we don't know him as Elohim, we will not know him by the rest of the names either. We'll throw out names. Names are a funny thing. It's important that we get this. Names are a very funny thing. Do you know that I have 4 names? And most of you have at least 3. First name, last name, middle name. My name is William. Oh, but my name is also Bill. And nobody ever told me I was Bill. Well, nobody ever wrote it down that it was Bill. It's just Bill. Because Bill's short for William. It's just a nickname. It's just a name I have never been called. Hardly ever been called William. I was in trouble. I've always been Bill. I haven't been Will. I got a son who likes Will. I'm not Will. I'm William or Bill. I'm not Billy. I've never been a Billy. I'm Bill. I'm William. I'm Bill. I'm George. Most people don't know that. I'm George. Right? William, George, Bill. I'm Bullock. I had a bunch of friends in sports that just called me Bullock. It's what was on the back of my jersey. Bullock. I'm William. No, I'm not. I'm George. No, I'm not. I'm Bill. No, I'm not. I'm Bullock. Now I'm Attorney Bullock. Or people want to call me all sorts of things. I try not to encourage them. I don't, I listened to Master, and he said, don't let them call you rabbi. Don't let them call you teacher. Don't let them call you these labels that people like to use. Don't let them do that. This is not about that, but people do it anyway. So I got those labels. Not only that, whenever my parents were alive, they called me son. Son. And whenever my wife came along, well, on the better days, she had a pet nickname for me, which I won't tell you. And then hospital, waiting room, labor, screaming delivery, and and growth, a little bit of growth, and eventually, I'm Dad. Then I'm Daddy. then I'm dad, or I'm pop, or I'm papa, or I'm father, and I'm all these things. And will I answer to Father? You better believe it. Does they have to call me William George Bullock, attorney at law? No. Names are a funny thing. There's a lot of them, and then I'm brother. I have two sisters. I could be a sister if I was a girl. I could be an aunt or an uncle. I am. I could be a that first little granddaughter that came up to me and had a name for me. I was supposed to be called Avi. I'm my father, my patriarch. She didn't go along with that at all. She called me Bata. I don't even know what that means. I mean, no one knows what that means. It doesn't matter. She calls me Bata, I answer. Now, do you see what I mean about names? I don't want you to fixate upon names. I don't want you to because you see, we all have multiple names. They're all correct, and they all have ways of attaching us. The question is not what our name is. The question is who's asking. I am not William George Bullock to my granddaughters. They don't even know who that is. All they know is Bata. But they know me very, very well. They know my heart. They know my life. They know my attitude. They know me so well, and they call me by a name that doesn't even exist written anywhere. Bata. Now, I want to tell you this because if you start analyzing other people, by virtue of what they call the one you call something else, there we're going to lose it. You're going to lose everything. Don't judge people by virtue of what they call him. And don't even judge yourself because you see, it depends on who's asking and why they're asking who he is. He introduces himself to us as Elohim. I like to think in terms of drama and plays and how he's presenting stories. And so in this great story, I like to call him personally, my Bata language to him is the immaculate protagonist. A protagonist is sort of the leading man in a story. And everything he gives us in the book of Genesis, everything Moshe teaches us in the book of Genesis, from his throne, all the impulses that Moshe gives to us are put in terms of stories. It's a great story, a sequence of stories are developing. This is not a doctrinal thesis we're getting here. This is stories about the creators to help us to get to know him. If you want to know about me from my granddaughter Gabriella, start asking her to tell her stories about how we have lived and interacted together. Well, that's the way this is. So these are stories, and I like to call him the immaculate protagonist. You can call him other things. But I see him as this one who is the leading man, the leading actor in all the dramas that we see in life. He's the leading actor in the things that we think are bad. He's the leading actor in the things we think are good. He is always working good. He's always bara'ing, though, in those processes. He never leaves it the way we see it. It's always deeper. So he gives us this name of Elohim. Elohim, what does Elohim mean? It comes from a Hebrew verb root. Now, if you look in your doctrinal treatises, if you look in your scholarly journals, you will find, especially Western world, Christian world, they don't understand Hebrew. They don't understand the Hebrew language. They don't understand the Hebrew mindset. And so they say that Elohim is derived from the noun El. Elohim, derived from the noun, this is what you'll read. Elohim is derived from the name El, meaning mighty one or great one. Powerful one, mighty, powerful one. That totally belies Hebrew and the way Hebrew works. Hebrew doesn't work that way. Hebrew doesn't derive it from nouns. Hebrew derives from verbs. So what is left out? If you look at Elohim, Aleph, Lamed, Hey, Yod, Mim, Hebrew verbs consist of 3 letters. It's a shoresh. It's a woven together root. It's like a chord, a C chord, C, E, and G. It has 3 things. And so what are the 3 letters that the verb root would be? Aleph, Lamed, Hey. Allah. Aleph, Lamed, Hey, Allah. What does the verb Allah mean? What does it picture? If we're going to know who Elohim is, we got to know what he does. You don't know about what he's called. You know about what he does. What is his signature? Aleph, Lamed, Hey. And then to the superlative, Yod, Mim. to the superlative form, to the absolute maximum form. What is he? He is the one who, to the absolute superlative form, Allah's. Well, what does it mean to Allah? To Allah means to make full. And to make full in a specific way. To make full by speaking into it what is not yet full, and then working with it to break it full. To speak into it which and it is not full, and then to work with it until what you see as fullness comes forth. Elohim. If you don't know him as Elohim, you're going to start labeling things and judging things and criticizing things and deciding things. Elohim, he's always Allahing. He's always making full by speaking that which is not full and working with the residue to make it full. So if you have an Elohim, do you have Elohim in your life? Is Elohim operative in your life? Is he making you full? Is he bringing fullness? Yeshua taught us this. Life, I want you, life to the fullness of life. I want you to, this is what he's always talking about. This is what the Holy One does. It's what Elohim does. The Elohim signature, the goal of the Elohim signature, of his bara'ing, is to make you full, to make you abundant, to make you everything you were designed, created, and could possibly be. Elohim is working, the Elohim signature in your life. I'm hoping you're getting the energy and the passion for that. And then beginning in chapter 2, verse 4, there's something added to Elohim. We begin another introduction. In chapter 2, verse 4, we are introduced to another phrase, which in English it says, the Lord God, in your King James or New King James Bibles. The Lord, all capitals L-O-R-D, God. And this is something new, something that comes out after the whole 7 days of creation, after the discussion of the Shabbat, after the seventh day Shabbat. He begins to talk in different terms, and he keeps the Elohim, which is in Hebrew it's Yod He Vav He Elohim. It's not Yod He Vav He by itself. It's Yod He Vav He Elohim. In other words, he's put a first name, so to speak. This is a rough way of taking it. He put a first name on his last name. For Christian folks, Jesus Christ, Yeshua HaMashiach. He's added another element to the name. It's just another element. It is not a separate name. It is another element to the name. Yod He Vav He, and I don't pronounce it for you because people will get upset because they're so tuned into one pronunciation of it. They make up sounds and vowel sounds and argue over what it sounds like, and it's not what it sounds like doesn't matter. It's what it means. What is the verb root? The verb root is, because it's Yod, He, Vav, He. The Yod is the prefix, and the He, Vav, He is the root verb. Everything in Hebrew comes from a verb. So what does the Yod, He, Vav, He come from? Hava. Hava means to become, to keep producing, and to become, to expand, and bring forth. So we have Yod He Vav He, the Hava, Allah. We have the one who is always expanding that which he is calling forth and bringing to fullness. Always operative, always present. If you want to get to Hava, really get close to Hava, it means to breathe. Because breathing is the methodology by which you get enough air to speak. It enables you to talk. It enables you to move and think. Your brain continues to function because you receive the oxygen. It enables all life function. He is the one who has this life function flowing, and he can speak, and therefore that's how he brings forth. That's how he brings forth the fullness. Now, I hope you're getting an image of, man, there's more to him than I've ever imagined before. He's doing things I couldn't even imagine. And everything that's going on, whenever I look at him, when I think of him, whenever I speak to him, he has got this thing going on that is in the Hava realm, and also in the Allah realm. And I am just trying to catch some of the energy and start move with that process. Okay, so we have the heavens and the earth. He created them. He spoke light. And then he did this other thing. With regard to the way he does things, Here is another part of his pattern, his thumb, his brushstroke. Darkness always comes before light. Darkness always comes before light. Chaos always comes before order. Vanity always comes before meaning. Therefore, don't curse the darkness. Therefore, don't judge the vanity. Therefore, don't judge the chaos. Because you see, these things must take place in order for you to have the contrast and to get the fullness. There must be something which is the exact opposite of what he's trying to bring forth. Now, if you see that in your own life, you can perhaps see why you had to go through some stuff you had to go through. Why your children are having to go through some stuff they are having to go through. Or they're choosing to go through, as the case may be. Why your nation has to go through some of the things it has to go through. Why your culture, why your city, why your region has to go through some of the things you have to go through. Because darkness must precede light. Otherwise, light is meaningless. If you don't know what darkness is, light doesn't mean anything to you. If you don't know what chaos is, structure doesn't mean anything to you. And if you don't understand what vanity is, chasing your tail and chasing the wind and coming up empty at all times, if you don't know what that means, you don't know what meaning, what substance, what purpose is. Okay, so now he's training us. Darkness must precede light. And it was evening first. And then it was morning. And that is what makes the day. The day is not over till the light comes. The day is not over until the time to work with what you've got comes. The day is not over yet because you see something that looks dark or looks chaotic or looks meaningless or looks vain. The day is not over yet because Elohim is operating, is in the building, is in the world. The day is not over because he has his minions. And we, God willing, will be his minions. This year, we will begin to function in the minion of the Elohim, of the Yod-Heh-Vav-Heh Elohim this year, as opposed to being more judges that the world doesn't need. How is that working out for us so far? So he brings forth, darkness precedes light. Whatever your child's darkness, whatever your darkness that you're facing right now, quit obsessing with the darkness. The day's not over yet. The day is coming when the light begins to shine. And when the light begins, it grows. It doesn't come automatically like that. It grows. It builds. There's a little speck of light. There's a little awakening. And then there's a movement. And then you see it grow. And the sun fills it. In the part I didn't read, the one verse I didn't read out of Psalm 19. And the sun comes forth, and it makes its trek like a bridegroom. It goes all the way across the sky. That's what we see. That's the way the light of God will be. It will come, and it will come in stages and phases, but it will come orderly in fashion, and it will begin to enlighten, and there will be seasons of extreme operation, and then we will begin to calm down before the next season of darkness occurs. This is his Elohim brushstroke, the Elohim pattern. A few minutes, we got other stories besides the creation week. I'd love to talk to you about every day. Don't have time to do that today. Each one follows the same pattern. Each day follows the same pattern. The Holy One sees something, he calls it forth, and he begins to operate with it and change it. And darkness precedes light, but light comes. Okay, now we get to chapter 2, and we're in the whole process of the Garden of Eden. The Garden of Eden. Bombshell. There is a garden. Gan. And in Hebrew, Gimel Nun Sofi. Gone. And here's this. This is where he decides to put. It's not where he made man. But this is where he decides to put man. This is our incubator. This is mankind's incubator. The garden. And he puts man in the garden. Why does he put man in the garden? There are two reasons: to tend it and to keep it. That is the only reason. It is not to engage in warfare with the serpent. It is not to discuss theology with snakes. He put mankind in the garden to do two things. There were two assignments and one empowerment and one prohibition. The two things, he said, in Hebrew, the word would be to abad and to shamar. To abad means to serve, to toil and work, to serve. We are not here to take from the garden. We are here to give to it. We are not here to take from the earth or from life. We are to give to it. We are servants. We are minions of the Holy One. We are here to serve. We are sharecroppers. We don't own it. We don't command it. We coordinate with the landowner, with the landlord, Elohim. We coordinate with Yohevave Elohim, who is the landowner, to begin to produce, to make it produce, to make it, to serve it. We have to serve it. We have to till it. We have to work it. We have to do all the things necessary to make it productive. We are here to make this world productive. We are here to produce fruit. John, Yeshua, all these. How you will know them? By their theology. You will know them, no. You will know them by their good doctrine, no. You will know them by their intelligence, no. You will know them by their F-R-U-I-T in English. Peri in Hebrew. You will know them by their fruit. This is the key. This is the source, the reason of human existence, is to be fruitful. Not to have babies, just to have babies. Is to be fruitful in all aspects of life. To be fruitful in all aspects of life. To always look at ourselves as servants of this world and all of its material things and all of its spiritual things and say, how can I serve you today? Whenever someone calls me and I don't recognize the telephone number on the cell phone, I always figure it's probably spam. Probably somebody wanting me to renew a vehicle warranty, or to change my MasterCard account, or I always think it's somebody. So I will answer it in a way which I am capable of doing, which I say, this is the Bullock Law Firm. May I help you? This call may be recorded for purposes of quality and customer service. You'd be amazed how many hang-ups. Now, I know I was going somewhere with that process, but I enjoyed the story. So now the issue is, how do we receive the intel? How do we respond to the Holy One? We are here to serve. Because the next thing I say is, if there's still somebody on the line that says, how may I help you today? How may I help you today? How may I be of service? That is your mission. I think a lot of times we think our mission is to be pampered. We think our purpose of being in the garden in this world is somehow to get treated well, to get appreciated, to get respected, to get honored. We think our reason to be here is to lecture people on what they're doing wrong and to judge them on what they're doing that's negative. We think our reason to be here is to be those two guys on Sesame Street, the two old codgers up on Sesame Street in the balcony, the grumpy old men. He says, no, you're not here for that. You're here to serve. You're here to abide. You're here as servants. You're here to say, what can I do to help you today? What can I do to serve you today? How can I bring about something of the bara'ing Elohim signature in your life today? How can I be the minion of the creator of the universe operative in your life today? Wow, would that change everything? That's the mindset the disciples had after Yeshua's resurrection. How can I serve this world? How can I serve the people? How can I This is the mindset he had. This is the mindset Yeshua taught us. He is the servant of all. But this is the reason man was created, to be a servant of all. We are in this. If you want to be served, you're in the wrong business. You're in the wrong kingdom. If you want to be honored, respected, appreciated, you're in the wrong business. You're here to serve. And the other thing is to shamar, is to keep. You are to tend and to keep. You are to abide and to shamar. Our job on earth, our calling on earth involves this second level. We have an accountability for service. There is an accounting. If we have a responsibility, we will have an accounting. So, were you a servant? What does people always say? I want to hear those words. When I get to heaven, as we think about it, if I can only imagine, but I want to hear these words. Well done, good and faithful theologian. Well done, good and faithful preacher. Well done, good and faithful narcissist. Well done, good and faithful. No, we want to hear these words, right? Well done, good and faithful servant. That's who we are. That's our identity. And if we're not serving, and you think you're going to get those words because you had good theology, I think Yeshua had some things to say about that in Matthew 7. It is he who does the will of my Father. Okay, you know that. So the second thing is to shamar, to keep. How do we treasure? How do we cherish? And that's what shamar means. It's to so highly value and cherish and treasure that therefore we will take diligent care and watch over and protect and defend to the end if necessary, like a samurai. It's actually the same set of words, same set of letters that were taken from out of the Japanese, out of the Hebrew. We say shamar, they say samurai. A samurai was at the risk of his own life, no matter what, he would defend his king. He valued his king so high, his emperor so high, that he would do anything. He would throw himself in any battle on the sake of the king. This is to samurai. This is to shamar. So to keep, we are to keep what? We are to so treasure the creation and every element of it and every person in it and every human being in it and every species and every genus in this creation so much that we are like the samurais. We are like the soldiers. We are like the ones who will do anything to defend and protect it. We will value it. Do you value other human beings? Or are they just means to an end? Are they just objects? Are they just obstacles? What are other human beings to you? What are trees and plants and shrubs? And what are what are mountains? And what are valleys? And what are rivers? What is the sky? What is the moon? What are these things? Are these just tools that you can use? Or are you on assignment from the creator of the universe to cherish and watch over and love and value and bring forth the best out of whatever element we have? It's like I always have this conversation with the king. I have two pieces of property that I actually have my name on the title. Rosemary and I have our names to the title on. And every time it's like, well, what do you want me to do to this land to make it to... I'm responsible for it. I have an accounting, like I have accounting billing with regard to my servanthood. I have an accountability. I have an accounting that I have to make with regard to my shamaring. How have I shamared the parts of creation, the people, the elements of creation that I am dealing with? How good of a guardian have I been? How have I been at valuing and treasuring the things that you have allowed me to have contact with in life? What has been my words? What have my words been saying? What has my attitude and my body language been saying about how I really feel about the things I'm in contact with and the people I'm in contact with in this world? What nasty things are letting come out of my mouth or off of my keyboard about some aspect of creation that he has put? I am supposed to shamar it. I'm supposed to keep it. I'm supposed to treasure it and cherish it and value it and see the good in it and begin to speak and do bara'ing work with the signature of Elohim. In regard to this, I am supposed to serve it by shamaring it, and I will have an accountability for that fact. Ooh, okay, so we've just begun to get started here, and then he's going to give us one more story, and then he'll wrap up for the week. Fast forward. Curtain opens. New act. New characters. Cain and his brother Hevel. And in this story is going to be every aspect of how not to do life. Every aspect of the obstacles we have in relating to other human beings, particularly our own family members, those that are we can't help but being in their spheres of influence. By this time, the garden is a distant memory. By this time, the garden, that was the incubator. Now we're in the real job. Now we're in the real life. And it's a vast outback of thorns and thistles. And we are given the same charge. Tend and keep it. Abad and shamar it. Now we aren't limited to a little garden, the royal garden of the king, not a little incubator. Now we're put into this vast world, the entire physical earth, and it's got thorns and thistles, and we're supposed to do what? We're supposed to bara. We're supposed to see something more than thorns and thistles. We're supposed to see something and call it forth and begin to speak it forth and begin to separate it from the thorns and the thistles and begin to put a boundary line and begin to make it fruitful, make fruit come forth out of it. And so here's Cain and here's Hevel, and Cain does it his way and Hevel does it his way. We got the rancher and we got the sodbuster. It's the old West in America. We got one plants and maybe they're both doing it, but they're known, they focus on one end of it. And Cain, he focuses on busting the sod and planting the species in the garden in this thorn and thistle patch. He has to go in there and he breaks up the dirt and he cleans out the rocks and the roots and the stuff that you got to do, and he plants crops and he works it and he waters it. And he watches over and he pulls the weeds, because now we got weeds growing. He works. Cain is not a lazy man. He works himself to death, but he is thinking about what he's producing. And then meanwhile there's Hevel. Hevel works hard too. He's doing it a whole different way. He is saying, okay, what can I make from this land by virtue of the animal species? And so he gets livestock. His flock. He talked about his flock, his zono in Hebrew, his flock. He produces a flock, and he begins to use the land. He begins to be a steward of the land, a sharecropper of the land, using it to raise sheep or raise goats, raise livestock in this process. And he works really, really hard too. And it's hard to raise livestock, and it's hard work. So he does that, and so the end of the season comes. The end of the harvest season comes. The seed time has come. The harvest has come. They've worked their tail out. They're sweaty. They're tired. They're frustrated, and they come, and suddenly both of them realize we have a serving responsibility. We have an accountability that goes with that. We have a treasuring, cherishing, guarding responsibility. We got to make an accountability. So they go and they actually both of them bring something of their crop. They realize that the creator of the universe is the landowner, and they're just the stewards. So whenever you have a sharecropper arrangement, at the end of the year, you have to present the crop back to whatever you've grown, whatever you produce. You have to present it back to the owner. And so they come to present portions of what they produced back to the owner. And Cain comes and he comes first, and he means well, as best as he knows how. And he brings some of his grain, some of his vegetables, some of whatever he produced in that field or in that garden. He brings it, and he's so proud of it, and he presents it. And it says that the Holy One, and in English it says he didn't respect the offering. That's not really what a good, legitimate way of it is. That he was very silent and thoughtful during the process. He didn't exuberantly reach out and say, "Well done, boy." And then comes Hevel, and Hevel brings something different. Hevel brings the firstborns, plural. I love it. Becherot, the plural of the firstborn, all of his species. He brings the firstborn of every species, and then he brings the best, the fullest, the fattest. Mechelevot, the fattest ones of his sheep. He doesn't just bring a few good grains of wheat and he brings the fullness, and he comes exuberantly with the best he's got and the firstborn of every species he's got, and he presents that. Hebrew tells you a whole lot more than your English does. And so he presents that, and the Holy One is ebullient. He's glad. He's joyful. And so what happens with Cain? Cain says, well, why does he get more than I get? Why does he get more from you than I get? What's the difference between, and he begins to have this jealousy. Well, I think he had it all along. But that's my thought. I think that's why when the Holy One looked at Cain, I think that's why when the Holy One looked at Cain's presentation, he looked beyond Cain's presentation. He looked way beyond Cain's presentation. He looked at Cain's heart. And what he saw in Cain's heart was that Cain was in this for the reward. Cain was in this for himself. Cain was in competition with his brother Abel. And that's what happened. And so that's why when he sees the offering, it's like, oh, the Holy One, how am I supposed to respond to this? How would you respond to this? You've got a son who has brought you an offering, a presentation, who is about to do something really bad, whether it's today, tomorrow, or the next day, because he has something very dark operating in his heart. How thankful, how grateful are you? How do you respond to stuff like that? Knowingly, he does not overreact to that process. So Hevel comes and does his, and now Cain sets a trap. Cain sets a trap. Hevel, come to my field. I want to show you my field. We don't know exactly how it worked out. He invited him to his field. He went to his field. And while he's in his field, we don't know how. Did he sneak up behind him with a rock? Did he hit him with a stick? What? He bludgeoned him to death. It was competition, you see. He was the enemy, you see. And so he strikes Cain. Cain strikes Hevel. And the blood pours forth. And Hevel falls. And Hevel dies. And his blood spills out of his body into the eretz, into the earth, into Cain's field. The toxicity spills into Cain's field where he produced the crop. The very thing the place where he produced the crop that he was so proud of is now poisoned by the blood of the innocent brother that he has just killed. How do you think that land is going to treat him? How do you think that, okay, you get going ahead of the picture. So the question becomes, how will the Holy One, how will Yod He Vav He Elohim, how will the Elohim signature, how will the Bara master deal with Cain? Murderer Moshe, murderer David. How will the Bara master deal with Cain? Deserving of death, he has committed the ultimate. He's murdered his brother. How will you deal with it? He is in your court. Moses is in your court. David's in your court. Cain's in your court. This is the question. Will you follow the bara? Will you follow the protocols of the Elohim signature, or will you just say, guilty? Well, this is the new renewing of the mind. Because what the Holy One, first of all, the Holy One warned him before it happened. What comes to, it's Cain. Why are you downcast? This downcast state, this state of depression, this state of anxiety, this state of grouchy old manness that you've got going on in you. This state of anxiety and angst in you is not what you were born for. If you just do what you're called to do, if you just abide, and if you just shamar, if you just follow the protocols, will you not do good? Will not good come to you? But sin crouches, it lies, it waits at the door, and it desires to own you and take over you and possess you, be your Pharaoh. And that's before it happened. And Cain disregards the warning completely. Just does the opposite. And he goes out there. That's when he invited Hevel out to the field and does what he did to the Hevel. And now here's the Holy One coming back. After the event. After the event. After the murder. After the bloodshed. After the failure to heed the warning. And he comes back and he says, Hevel. And he says, Cain, where's your brother? He knows. Where's your brother? And Hevel, Cain comes back with this weird thing in English. Am I my brother's keeper? In Hebrew, it's like, I was supposed to shamar my brother. I was supposed to value him. I was supposed to see value and worth in him. That's part of the creation. I was responsible for shamaring is other human beings that are doing things that interfere with my well-being, my life, my joy, my pleasure. I was supposed to shamar him? Huh. And now he's still in your court. So what would you do with old Cain? He has completely disregarded the warning, the gentle, kind, loving warning that he was given. The dire consequences were spelled out, and now he has done it, and now he's blowing you off, telling you, I'm not going to be responsible for valuing human beings that are in my way, that are different than me, that I see as competition, my desire to get as much of this world as I possibly can. So what is your judgment now? What is your decree now? Oh, are you going to do an Elohim signature, or are you going to do a fallen human being process? So the Holy One says the ground is cursed. Why is it cursed? Because God cursed it? It's cursed because innocent blood pollutes it. And who shed the innocent blood? Who cursed the land? The land is cursed because Cain has caused it to be cursed. The land that produced the crop. So now you're going to have to go out, but I will do this for you, Cain. Instead of killing you, instead of letting you be killed, I am going to declare such mercy and kindness over you that I'm going to put a mark upon you that no one will touch you, no one will hurt you. That's the Bara signature. That's the Bara signature. That's the Elohim signature. I am going to instead provide a way, an opportunity, generation after generation after generation. And here's the strange thing. Elohim is omniscient. He knows the end from the beginning. He knows that generations down the road, Cain's descendants, Cain's entire bloodline, is going to become so corrupt that every intent and thought of their heart continually is only evil. That is why we're going to read parts of Noah next week. He knows that ultimately down the road, down the passageway, like he knew that whenever Cain brought that little sampling of his crop, that he was going to kill the brother because he's omniscient. Like he knows all the sin that you're going to do before you ever do it. Like he knows the sins your children are going to do before they do them. He knows all this stuff, and knowing that the end of this result is that the flood is going to have to happen, and for the sake of the continuation of the world, he's going to have to destroy all of Cain's bloodline. Nevertheless, he wants to give opportunity after opportunity for generation after generation after generation for Cain's family to interact with the family, to intermarry with the family of Seth, of Shet, to begin to have hope for restoration. And so what we see is we don't know where Noah's wife came from. We'll see this next week. But somewhere down the road they had to interact and intermarry. And something of the line of Cain is going to be saved and redeemed and brought forth in the earth. The Elohim signature is a beautiful signature. The master's brushstrokes are wonderful. They are calling you to participate as well. But you're going to have your mind renewed to do this. To enter into this next year and the next phase of operations of the Holy One, to begin to operate in the wisdom and the power and the goodness of God, it requires us to let go of all these minion mentalities, our ethnic prejudices and ethnic judgments towards other people, our national judgments and criticism of other people, our personal dislike of other, and we are here to abide, to serve, and we are here to value, cherish, and therefore guard and protect the potential in other people and in all things. Well, it is time. I have lost my clock. It's over. It's gone. I hope this has been a good introduction for those who are watching online to our portion we're about to begin. We've kicked off. This is just a few words at the beginning. We have 54 parshas altogether, 52 weeks. And in this course of this year, we are going to learn the intricacies, the ins and outs, the details of the Elohim Signature, the way to reproduce the brushstrokes of the Holy One, as much as our limitations allow. Shabbat Shalom. See you next week.